Welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting, 10th February 2022. To start with, are there any announcements? I take it as a no. So we follow the standard agenda documented in issue number 1162. The first one is 41782 clarify require crypto.get random values is Node.js specific.
Yeah, we might need James or Antoine for that. Yeah, I don't know if anyone in this group has been involved in that, but we might need James or Antoine.
Okay. So I'll defer it either till James joins or maybe.
Yeah, I'd keep it on the agenda for next week, but there's still activity in the pull request, so we might as well. Yeah, let's keep it on the agenda for next week.
Okay. And the next one is 41113, which is managing feature requests. I'm sure this is added by Michael, and it has been there for quite some time. If I remember the conversation correctly, the last time he talked about needing some more reviews in the PR, which he raised. Not sure whether it got landed or not.
Yeah, the PR landed in Node Core. It's 41420. It landed 6 days ago, so after the last meeting.
Okay, so if the PR landed, the purpose of this issue should have been resolved and closed. I'm not sure why it's still open.
The issue is still, yeah, I'll add a comment. I don't know.
Yeah. The scope of this issue was very much specific to adding documentation around the management of the life cycle of these tail issues. So I believe that is well covered in the documentation. But yeah, adding a comment makes sense to me. Moving on to the next one, 40718, clarification around real-world risk and use cases of VM module. Headed by Matteo.
The only activity I'm aware of is that there is a pull request in the core repo that makes the text that warns about using the VM module as a security mechanism bold and red, I believe, so it's more visible. I'm not sure if there's been any other activity.
Mm-hmm. I remember briefly discussing about this last week, but not able to recollect the context. So probably we should keep this in the agenda. The last discussion was 12 days ago in the issue. We should see how this issue is going with people pouring in with ideas, suggestions, and points. Anybody has anything to add on this item? 40718.
Aside, I think Matteo needs to be promoted. Feel free to make me co-host and I can keep track of that.
Okay. Yep, you are a co-host now.
Matteo, we are just talking about the clarification around real-world risks and use cases of the VM module. I believe you added that.
Sorry, I missed the exact sentence. I was just joining with the audio. So can you repeat?
No worries. We are talking about the VM module, and I believe you added that issue to the agenda.
Well, yes, it's an old one to some extent. It's we talked a little bit at one of the previous meetings, and there was some conclusion posted by Rich, I think. So there is a PR open. So I think we can remove it from the agenda. Like there's a PR open, and which a bunch of LGTMs. So I think it's going to be landing soon. So no, can be removed from the agenda. No need to.
Is the PR you're mentioning the one by Rich that's highlighting the text? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So it's no need for anything else. If you hear this is my daughter. So sorry.
All right. Thanks, Matteo. Moving on to the next one, which is 33864, rename default branch from master to main. I don't know if there is any activity that happened in the last week.
I don't think so. It's still the more troublesome repositories. We just need to figure out a plan for moving those.
Okay. So I believe those are the core repo and the build repo, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Okay. So let's keep it for the time being as well. Probably there should be some discussion around to see some concrete action plans coming out of this discussion, and spinning it out from the TSC agenda so that some activity can be done rather than we doing a status check on a weekly cadence.
Yeah, I think even like just figuring out a good time, like within the build working group, a good time to do that when there's not loads of releases or things around.
Yeah. Or even probably listing out all the challenges, known challenges, bringing in the issue and we looking at as a team. That also maybe will help make some progress. All right. Next one is on the TSC repo 1133, invite TSC members in Google Calendar event for meetings. I think this was added by Mary. And we do have some meeting invites from her. Not sure.
Yeah, I think the last step on that one, I think we've all got the invites, would be to add the Zoom link just so it's easier for us all to access it, and it can probably be removed from the agenda.
Okay. You mean the invite message text should carry the Zoom link for participation? Is that what you mean, Beth?
Yeah, just so it's in there, because I think at the moment it has like a Google Meet link, so it'd just be good to update it to use the link that we use to join.
Okay. Next one is 1104, future of primordials. Antoine. I don't think Antoine is on the call, but as far as I know, voting is in progress on a specific aspect, and it is slated for 2 weeks, which most probably will fall in this week or the next couple of days. After that, I believe the vote is going to close and the decision is going to be made public. and then we move on to the next one. So, I mean, just reiterating, if anybody is still pending to make a vote on that, please go ahead and cast your vote. The next one is 790, which is looking for feedback pointer compression in Node.js. I'm sure this is from Matteo.
Did we add it back to the? Did I add it? Or let me just don't remember me adding it. I created the issue.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week. Maybe we just didn't remove it.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said Matteo because most of the time when pointer compression was discussed, Matteo was there.
No, I mean it's let me open it up. I don't remember adding it back here, but
if I remember,
Larry added it 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So, and I believe last week we concluded that it might still be worth pursuing that. It's just nobody has found time to work on it.
Yeah, it's. I agree. Like that's my full sentence on it. Like the prototype is there. We know it works. I've tested the prototype in a few client settings, in a few production settings. It's it delivers phenomenal results in terms of memory consumption. So if your Node app is scaling with it's scaling on memory, so your main bottleneck for scaling is memory, it will deliver massive improvements. But that's it. Okay, so it's you need somebody to take on the work if you want to make it official, essentially. Like there's a lot of work to make it official if we want to. There doesn't seem anybody to volunteer. I'm not volunteering. There's not seem anybody that is caring enough to get the work done, I assume.
Okay, but on the other hand, there wasn't any big ask from the user base. I think that's what we discussed.
I would not necessarily agree with that. I mean that there was. I think that most people would. I think that there is an ask, but there is not enough for people to volunteer to do the work. If you ask me the difference, okay? Like most people I talked to said, well, I would love to not to consume less memory, but then would you invest time in making it so? Nope. So
I think it's also not a very well-known feature. It's very specific to V8 and similar runtimes, and it's not very commonly used by other runtimes. At least I'm not aware of many runtimes other than Chrome implementing it or using it.
An action here would be to, put it in some more prominent way to some of our corporate sponsor if they want to push this. I don't know. Like it doesn't seem a feature that, like, if you are a large node deployment, you might want to do this. Okay, but if you are a company just using Node for stuff, probably not really. It's not your first. Place where you would like invest your money. So I don't know. That's kind of my feeling here. Look, I am on the verge of saying close this. We can do this. This is somewhat less. Somebody's willing to take on the work. I think it's possible for us to ship an official build with pointer comparison.
Sorry, Matteo,
Or something like that.
is it a concern that it might break native add-ons?
It's I'm way less concerned now than I was in the past, in the sense that we can say that, but most of our native add-ons use an API, and I think that's safe. So that was my, and if they need that, well, fine, they will rebuild the modules. I don't necessarily be like, I'm not necessarily super, as long as there is a way to select which module should be loaded, it doesn't seem such a big blocker to me. So
I'm just wondering, since there was the suggestion to include 2 V8 builds in a node binary, one with and one without compression. So I'm wondering what the most likely scenario is where you would need the other build.
You will need the other build because we have there are a few users out there that are currently using Node.js to execute application that requires 8 to 12 gigabytes of memory. So that is a real thing. Okay. Now we could decide to ship it in a major and just maintain an unconstrained version for Linux, for example. That can be another possibility. I don't know. Like there are options here. You know, it's not all of them are equally good. Like I would prefer to, there are concerns about the ecosystem to be considered, but again, I don't see much demand on the large part of the user base, and the companies that will benefit this the most are not willing to fork to invest on it. So essentially, I probably should be not a priority.
Okay, thanks for the summary. Do you happen to know the limit that comes from pointer compression? If
4 gigabytes. 4 gigabytes.
Right, is that per process or per context or per worker thread or?
I think it's per heap, but like I think if you moved from one isolate to another, you get different ones. But I would not put my hand on fire on it.
Okay, thanks anyway.
So the way this works, it just cuts. It has used 32 bits pointers. That's how it works. Okay, it's not magic. Okay, it just cuts away 32 bits pointers when just move everything to 32 bits pointers when referencing from one object to another. Like it's actually very simple to understand. So it's it's great.
Right. So so theoretically, you could use a separate namespace for each context, since they don't necessarily share objects, right? So you would have
exactly.
Okay.
That's my theory. Yeah, but I believe that will need to be proven with we need to be checked with the V18.
Yeah, sounds good.
If the point
there is not another limit somewhere else, okay? Like
if the pointer is getting divided or cut into 32-bit, I would argue that the saving will be directly proportional to the number of objects in the heap. The more objects you have, that many pointers will be reduced, and you will see the memory saving proportionately. Is that correct, Matteo?
Yeah, it's yes, and it's extremely significant.
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know, we ran in case of a lot of very small objects, okay? Like for example, React server-side rendering application or things like that. It was, I don't know, 35, 40%, something like that. of memory saved, something like it's kind of impressive by looking at it, but it comes with a limit, right? So.
The memory reduction, do you have any sense of the performance impact?
I did some load testing and there was none. Like zero. Or it was shielded by some other bottlenecks that we had, which is also possible. But this was like last time I checked was a long time ago. So it might even, if I recall correctly, it was actually running a little bit faster because it's actually less memory being used. So there is less memory. You can actually there is more memory in the CPU caches that can go into the CPU caches. So I think it actually slightly faster, but minimally. Yeah. Okay. So
I was hoping it would be faster.
It was a long time has passed, but if I recall correctly, it was slightly faster, but not 50% faster, or not even, I don't think even 10% faster. Okay, so, but it also depends, like I didn't test those big loads, so just small loads. So, yeah.
There is an additional activity involved in dereferencing every pointer, because you need to recompose the 64-bit part of the pointer before you actually get the value that is pointed by the pointer. So that way there is an additional penalty associated with every operation, but probably that gets nullified by the CPU cache optimization, which Matteo is talking about. That may be huge, and that is masking of this small penalty.
Yeah, anyway, there is no, as I said, from my test, there was almost no difference, if not a little bit of a benefit of it. But to be honest, it was hardly, like, it was not enormously significant, okay, to recall, oh, it's radically different. It was a huge memory saving for almost no penalty in practice. Like we did some testing of it, and however, there was literally no interest in, I didn't see much interest in shipping, okay, this feature. Now, we might want to do some promotion to attract some collaboration and things, but I don't know, like this is it's a good question though. It's a good thing to ask.
Let's keep it in the agenda and revisit this next week also before we take a call.
Sure.
All right. Moving on to the next one, 108 mini summit. I see this issue is closed, so there's nothing to discuss on this as per last comment by Michael. So that's the list of items in the regular agenda. I know we also used to discuss the CPC update and the strategic initiatives. Are there anybody in this meeting who can update on those? I don't know which order or which item we used to discuss. So if anybody has any idea, please update.
Just a question, should fetch be a strategic initiative?
That's a good question. The strategic initiatives are crafted in the past basically to add some traction to a specific initiative which are strategically important, but identified as requiring some specific focused effort, which was not otherwise getting to it. So if fetch qualifies for that, absolutely yes.
I don't know if it does. I was just wanted to raise the question.
So probably, I mean, if you're interested or if you want to champion that, I would suggest you open an issue in this TSC repo and add a label so that we can have a round of discussion. And I don't know whether we should have a vote for that, but if there is a general consensus that fetch can be a strategic initiative, and we can go for that.
All right, I'll give it some more thought and maybe open issue. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah. I take it as a no on other updates, or that essentially means we come to an end of the public section.